First off, and most importantly, go Knicks. Congratulations to the New York Knicks for winning the NBA Finals. Okay, let's get into it. Mudlarks. We're talking Mudlarks this week. A lot of exciting stuff happened on this game, and I played it a few times, and I have been thinking a lot about how sometimes I have a bunch of really cool ideas for actions, things you can do in the game, and it takes a bunch of iterations to just figure out where those go. Like, did they go on this component or did they go on this component? Did they belong on the board or do they belong on cards in your hand? What is the like form factor that you give the player the cool thing so that they can do it? And the funny thing is, I've had this experience with Colossi, with Beastmaster, with things I've worked on with Walter, with Pecking Order, with all sorts of different things where it's like, you know that there's a cool thing you want a player to be able to do, but it takes a lot of work to figure out exactly like when and where and how do I give this to them? And it makes a huge difference, the answer to that question. So let me step back and talk about how like what this game was in V1, V2, V3, where it is now, the big breakthrough that I just had. Okay, so as a quick reminder, you have all these items in the game. You go out and you find them. All these items have right now on them are just like a type and a size, and you're going around and you're collecting all these different things. And the fundamental tension of the game is that you want to build the best collection, but the best collection is determined by these little, what I call prize pool cards, right? These little cards that have a little condition out there that's like, who has the most contraband? Or this one says, all the cards in your cache are of the same type, right? And so you can either play your little card to your cache to score it there, or you can tuck it behind this prize pool to make the prize pool worth more points. And so if you think you have a good chance of winning a particular prize pool, you should dump cards into it. But if you do that too early, it's going to telegraph to everyone what you're doing. And so there's this tension between, do I play this thing to my cache or do I throw it into a prize pool so that I can make my cache more valuable at the end of the game? And then, of course, I wanted there to be a bunch of really cool actions. So I wanted to have stuff in there where you're like, there's a way to trash other people's cards that are cached. There's a way to move things around in the prize pools. There's like cool and exciting stuff you can do inside of that simple framework. That's where my games always come to life, is like, what are all of the cool, maximalist, crazy, cutthroat things that you can throw into that framework? How crazy can we make it? And so my first thought was, in the very first version of the game, even before I talked about it last week, I put the action right on the card, right? So you go out there and you get a bunch of cards and you have actions on all of them. So in this case, this is Pebble, and it says, move any number of cards from your cache to the prize pool. So if you choose to cache this in your cache, you not only get the fact that you get this like tiny nature card added to your cache, you also get this really cool action that comes along with it. And so if you cache it, you get to take this action. Voila, very cool. You get an action and no one else gets it. This feels a little bit unfair because if this is a really, really useful thing, it needs to be, it's only given to you and to nobody else. And so like you could balance that by saying like, if you add it to a prize pool, this is worth less. I tried that. It didn't really feel very good. And so the unfairness felt a little odd. It also felt odd that, you know, the player experience, if they have actions on all or even most of these cards, is that they keep on drawing cards and they're sitting here like reading them like a lawyer and kind of parsing them. This is a little bit of the experience of like a deeper or denser game, a sort of less casual game where you need to sit there and like in a lawyerly way read all of these cards, internalize them. Each of them has a different mechanism on them, like a different kind of action. And it just led to this player experience where people were like reading their cards and staring at their hand instead of staring at the table and like talking to each other and enjoying the social game. I didn't like that very much. So the second version of it, I took all the exact same actions and I moved them onto these cards. And I showed these at the end of the last episode. And these were these cool things that I sort of set off to the side. So like on one side of the table, I had all these prize pools that are like, hey, here's what you're actually aiming for at the end of the game. Tuck cards in here to make these more valuable. But then also, here's these other things where you can trash a card or discard a card or whatever to take this action. So in this case, this basically says, discard one contraband in order to move any number of cards from your cache to prize pools. It's the exact same action, but it's now available to anyone who is willing to trash one of their contrabands. That makes it a much more interesting choice. One, because it's now public information that anyone could do this, right? It's widely available for anyone to do. You know that your opponents could do it, and that's going to affect how you think about your actions. It's already way more interesting. But also, just from a player experience, now we have people looking out at public information and talking openly about it rather than sitting there and sort of like sort of clamming up and reading their cards like a lawyer, which is a very, very different player experience. This worked much better for this kind of like casual pub game that I really want to have. So this was better in a bunch of obvious ways, but we still weren't quite there because, for one, it's kind of weird to have like these two different public things out there. That it's like these ones over here are like how you score, these ones over here are your actions. It wasn't like confusing, but something about it just felt a little bit off to me. And then I also had this issue where I really liked how these actions required you to discard a specific type in order to get the action. Whereas when you tuck a card on a prize pool right now, you can just tuck any card back there and it's worth a point, right? And so it was a little bit like samey. It was a little bit like not that interesting. And it was a little bit, I don't know, it just felt like you're kind of doing the same thing over and over again. And I even had players ask me like, ooh, do I need to like tuck specific types of cards or sizes of cards underneath the prize pools to make them more valuable? And I was like, no, but that is a good idea. It kind of feels better or sort of more thematic. Okay. So this led me to the new design, which I'm very excited about because I think it solves several problems at once and actually makes the game way more interesting. So I already had this last week, but now these cards, the items, have basically nothing on them. They're going to have a really cool piece of artwork, a name, a size, and a type. That's it. When you get your cards, you need to glance at them to kind of internalize, okay, here are the types that I have available, but you don't need to read them. There's no lawyerly reading of anything that's in your hand. So what you have now is this, which at the top here is the prize pool. And this basically has a condition. This one says, have all of your cards be of the same type and you'll get rewarded at the end of the game. But one thing that's also going to make it a lot more interesting is that it tells you the types that make it more valuable or less valuable. Whereas it used to not even matter which one you did. Now on this one, for example, if you have critters or nature, it makes this, gives this +2 points. And if you put contraband or doodads on this one, it takes away a point. So this automatically creates a way more dynamic space where you're actually thinking about which types go to which prize pools, which players have already kind of indicated they want to do. I think it just makes it a lot more interesting, but it also means that you can configure those things to be very different from prize pool to prize pool. And that's like a lever or a sort of a dial that you get to play with to make these things more interesting. But then also, the action that you get to take for placing a card there is right here on this card. So in this case, it says for each card that you tuck here, you may move any number of items from your cache to your prize pools. It's that same action, but again, it's in a different form factor because now it's like, whether you're playing to make this thing more valuable or you're like nerfing it to make it less valuable, afterwards, you get to throw cards into prize pools, which means there's a bunch of like obvious strategies here that are like kind of interesting where you can play a card here. You could sort of trick people into thinking that you're not going for the all of the same type. And towards the end of the game, like play this and move a bunch of cards out of your cache and suddenly your whole cache is of one type, right? So suddenly I'm like, oh, these things are like self-contained puzzles. Each of these prize pools can basically now be a interesting and self-contained dilemma that presents the player with multiple interesting options. And there's something interesting for the nerfer to do, and there's something interesting for the buffer to do, right? Like if you are trying to make this thing more powerful, there's like questions and interesting trade-offs that you have to make about playing into this, and same for the person who's trying to kill it. Once I opened that up, all of a sudden it was like this explosion of ideas. That's always such a good sign whenever I'm designing something, is like I twist it, and I find just the right shape. And all of a sudden I'm like, oh, well, if I do it this way. And so immediately I made a whole bunch of these They were really cool. Like I have one here that is the spoilers dilemma. And this one, if you play contraband here, it gives this prize pool -5. But when you play contraband here, you have to trash, oops, I dropped it, 2 items from your cache, right? So basically this one is going to get built up and built up because it's easy to build up and it's like really, really costly to nerf. But if no one nerfs it, it's going to be incredibly powerful. So someone is going to have to come along here and drop contraband on here. And maybe there's an opportunity time to do it. Maybe it's actually smarter to do that at the beginning of the game before you have anything in your cache. There's like multiple ways this could play out, but it's like this little self-contained puzzle. It's a little self-contained social game. You put 4 of these out there and it gets really interesting. A couple others that I liked were like, this one was called Don't Rock the Boat. And it's fairly straightforward from the scoring perspective, but at the bottom here, it says, if you tucked the 12th item here, trash all of the items here. So basically, if this turns out to be a pretty normal one, so be it, great, fine. But if people really start playing here a lot, it's going to just go away eventually. And so it could incentivize people to play there more often. It's going to kind of warp the playing field a little bit. This one says that if the last item, after the last item of the game is played here, you can move. The winner of this one doesn't win any points, but they do get the ability to move everything here to other prize pools. And if it's tied, nothing happens. And so now, like, the obvious strategy is try to force a tie here, because if your opponent gets to move everything that was here, that is going to completely warp the end game state. That's crazy. That's a really crazy way to play. It might be broken. I don't know. We'll see. But it's out there from the beginning, and everyone has perfect knowledge that this is going to happen. And forcing a tie is actually not too hard because it's just about having the most doodads. And so, like, actually, there's a lot of ways this could shake out. If nobody else sets up, a good play here, somebody might dump all their cards in and be able to move them to other ones afterwards. But if you force a tie, that's going to be kind of costly to you. Again, it's like a self-contained social game, puzzle game, whatever you want to call it. But there's a dilemma, a puzzle, something that is interesting about each one of these. And I have ideas for like dozens more of them. So it was just a really interesting example where it's like, I had this huge list of actions. I had this huge list of conditions for how to win a prize pool. And I tried them in like 3 different shapes, and there were real problems with several of them. And by twisting it just a little bit more and being like, I don't want this to be 2 different cards. Maybe what would happen if it was all one card? Like something cracked open, and I was like, oh my gosh, the design space here just got 10 times bigger. And now I'm like really coming up with interesting stuff. And that is exactly the moment that you're looking for when you're designing a game. So I am full of beans right now, cranking these things out. Really fun.